Hello everybody. Hello Ant.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm even better all for hanging out with you as always today in an Audi R8 V10 GT RWD, or you could just call it the new Audi R8 GT. And we were having a little conversation about, have supercars changed our lives?
It is 5 years ago now, I believe, you picked up your first supercar, the R8 GT.
It has been nearly 5 years now, and the time has passed actually extraordinarily quickly.
Yeah.
And of course, in the meantime, I picked up another one.
Yep, the Lamborghini Gallardo LP 570-4 Edizione Tecnica.
You missed out the Superleggera part.
You keep buying cars with silly long names.
This is the problem.
And it's also nearly 5 years to the day, you know, that I picked up my Ferrari 550 Maranello.
And when did you get your Scuderia?
The first Scuderia,
one.
2021, and then I got the black one in February, March 2022. I've had that one for 3 years.
So technically, does that mean that I've owned a supercar longer than you?
Yes, it does. Though, for the purposes of today's conversations, when we say the word supercar, I'm going to include other exotic in that.
Okay.
So I'm going to stick the 550 in that category on a temporary basis, if you don't mind.
Sure, just for the purposes of today.
Yeah. Has owning a supercar changed your life?
It has actually, in a few ways. The one that I want to start with actually relates to the car we're in right now. Because this is a £200,000 Audi R8 rare edition. Currently, you can pick one of these up for around 180,000. And my perspective is the thing that's changed, because before I owned that car, I don't think I would have ever stopped to consider if I could afford a car like this.
Weird, isn't it, that 5-6 years ago, even just driving a car like this would have been an incredible experience. And it's not that it isn't anymore, but this is just another day at the office for us.
Oh yes, indeed.
I've definitely had worse days at work.
Ah, indeed. When I was buying the R8 GT, it was the most expensive car that I'd ever bought. And I was really nervous about it, because even though I was buying that car for around the 70,000 mark, it still was a car that when sold was around 175,000 at the time. And in 2012, by the time you translate that money, that worked out to 195,000 by the time you get to 2020. So my thought was, will I be able to maintain this car? Now, fortunately, an extended warranty was available from Audi for a really affordable price. And that kind of alleviated some of my concerns, shall we say. And actually, overall, it's been a pretty good car. But now I kind of got to the point where that car's basically paid off. The equity that I have in the Lamborghini Gallardo LP 570-4 Superleggera Edizione Tecnica adds to the total amount of money I have as an asset. And if I wanted to, I think I could sell those two cars and then be able to get into something of this price for the same payments as I'm paying out on the Gallardo right now. And that freaks me out, because 5 years ago, that would not have been something that would have even crossed my mind.
No, I absolutely empathise, and I feel it is important in these discussions to talk sometimes a little bit about numbers. Now, none of this is secret, we've talked about it before. Mine are actually quite similar to yours. So I bought the 550 for £68,000 back in 2020. At that point in time, it wasn't the biggest, most expensive thing I'd ever bought. That was my Lotus Evora 400, which was the same amount of money, as it happens, I think, to the pound. But still, it is a 25-year-old Italian supercar. Well, at the time, 21-year-old, Italian Super GT, whatever you want to call it. The Lotus had a warranty. The Ferrari did not. So if it broke, I knew I was going to have to pay for it. And my life had changed a little bit by then. I was earning money regularly from YouTube, and my theory was, worst case scenario, if it's broken and I can't afford to fix it, I can just store it and then deal with it later. Now, a few years on, I have sometimes looked at what's on the driveway and thought, you know what, I could sell a couple of cars and get something else. And at one point I was thinking of selling the Scuderia. I obviously had the first one that went back, and then I had to think about what did I replace it with, and eventually I just settled on another Scuderia. But while I was looking, I looked at all sorts of stuff, including a McLaren 675 LT, which is a car that every now and again I keep looking back at. And I found a really nice example that was near enough how I would expect it from the factory, and it was £220,000.
Ouch.
And I looked at it and I thought, oh, 220, that's just, come on, James, that's just silly money. That's billionaire money. And then I was like, actually, hang on a minute. I've already bought a £175,000 car. If I sold the 550, which at that point was paid off, that would more than cover the difference. I would actually owe less money than I did on the Scuderia. And all of a sudden I thought, I could own a £225,000 car. Now, what put the brakes on that particular thing was that the Scuderia that I'd had was £175,000. I put in a £50,000 deposit, and the monthly payment was 800 quid.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's basically what I'm paying for the Gallardo right now.
Right. The McLaren, care to take a guess? With basically the same amount of money down, so obviously a more expensive car by about 40 grand.
Oh, I don't know, 1,200?
3.5 grand.
What?
Yeah.
Is that because of McLaren's notorious residuals?
I think what they've done is in their calculator, they basically classed it as a 650S.
Right.
So they decided that after 3 years, it was going to be worth 40 grand, which of course, no 675 LT. If you set fire to a 675 LT, at 40 grand, I'd expect to have to put the fire out myself, right? You know, so that just put the brakes on that immediately. And personally, I found it very, very frustrating, because otherwise I'd really seriously considered that. But yeah, it does warp your perspective a little bit. And sometimes I have a sort of stop and pinch me moment and think like, what am I doing? But then I just think, oh, we're just living the dream, aren't we?
Yeah. But the thing is, I think that change of perspective is good.
Yeah.
I think it's healthy, because it makes you look beyond where you'd looked before, and makes you see opportunities and possibilities that were previously perhaps beyond your comprehension, like the acceleration on this thing sometimes. One of the things that Supercars changed about my life before I'd owned one was that focus it gave me, because I absolutely wanted to own one before I was dead. It was like the main thing on my bucket list. There were times in my life where I thought all was lost, it was over. I've said this many times before on the channel. I was homeless at the age of 18, couch surfing for years, and I had to find my way back, and then, you know, had another setback in life, then I had to fight my way back again. And every time, you know, when I was just about scraping by, I was focused on this idea that one day I know I can own a supercar. And that's what kept driving me forward constantly. And the reason I mention it now in relation to perspective is because at that time, it did seem almost like a pipe dream, because these are cars were worth as much as a house. And in fact, some parts of this country, these cars are still worth as much as a house. And just the idea of that just was almost incomprehensible. But you know, obviously as I got older and you start to see the possibilities and what you can do if you put your mind to it and if you remain perseverant in what you're doing, that for me is what changed my life with supercars before I'd owned one. And I think that follows on once you have owned one, how it then makes you see, well, now there's the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
And not just in the world of supercars, but I think it's really good for people to have something that is a goal, have something to work towards, because not everybody has the luxurious position of having a job that they really enjoy. For a lot of people, a job is just a job. And I think if you can have something that provides you a bit of motivation and then ultimately can give you a little bit of happiness, you know, at the weekend or when you go away or something like that, then that is something that should always be celebrated, no matter what the price point is. It doesn't matter if it's £1,000 worth of MX-5 or £1 million worth of Veyron or whatever. It doesn't matter. If you love it, if you've worked for it and you enjoy it, like, that's a great thing. Exactly.
And actually, I felt the same way about my 370Z Nismo. When I got that was like, that felt actually more exciting for me than buying my first supercar in a way.
Yeah.
It was a weird thing, but yeah, it was up there.
Do you know one of the things I also really love? Right, this is just, maybe it's just me, I honestly don't know. I'll often see on forums people talking about different cars and whatnot, this, that, and the other. And you'll occasionally get somebody coming along, and let's say on the Lotus forums that I'm often a part of still, someone will say like, oh, here's this Evora, oh, it's basically just like a Ferrari. And then someone might come along and say like, no, it's not, it's terrible, it's rubbish, it's awful, how on earth could you compare it to a Ferrari? And then I love having the ability now to come along and say, Well, actually, as a former Lotus owner and current Ferrari owner, I can tell you definitively that, sure, there are some ways in which the two cars don't compare, because in some ways, the Lotus is better. You know, yeah, sure, in other ways, the Ferrari is the superior vehicle, but you know what? There's a lot that I wish my Ferrari did, or felt like, or whatever, that it doesn't, but the Lotus does. You know, just because it's cheaper doesn't make it worse. And there's always this possibility of the grass is always greener.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, I love and I appreciate the cars that I'm fortunate enough to have. But actually now, what gives me almost a real sense of peace is that if everything went wrong, if everything went totally and completely just, you know, end up basically.
Yeah.
And I had to start again, or YouTube failed, or things went horribly wrong for me, and I had to go back to buying the sort of cars that I did 10 years ago. And before I started the channel, the most I'd ever spent on a car was £15,000. It was on a Z4M Coupe, and I was so deeply uncomfortable because it was low mileage, I sold it because I was afraid of it depreciating. So that's where I've come from.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm in the situation I am now, but I always think maybe one day I won't be. And that does two things. Number one, it makes me more grateful for what I have now. It makes me want to enjoy what I have now, because growing up I knew people that had means, they had the nice things, they just never seemed to use them.
Yeah.
And we've spoken at great length in many different mediums, including our podcast, The Radiator Arms, with our good friend Will, about the positive power of just seeing a car out and about. Brings me great joy. I've seen Will out and about a couple of times recently in his new Mercedes, and he's very, very happy indeed.
That's fantastic.
But the other thing, and maybe it's almost a bit zen-like really, but now that I've got a chance to sample stuff at all ends of the spectrum, I take massive pleasure in knowing that I can still find driving joy in something that hasn't cost much money.
Oh yeah. Like the other day when I was out in
The
Will's
Maestro.
Maestro.
Yeah.
I was loving it. Yeah. I mean, what's that car worth? £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 maybe?
Well, we reckon £2,500,
Two and a half,
maybe.
$3,000.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a whale of the time, and I think that's one of the things that supercars haven't changed about me, and I think, and know for sure is the same with you, is it hasn't really made me become snobby about cars, and I have met one or two supercar owners who are a little bit like that. But trust me, most of the friends that I've made in the supercar community aren't like that. They do love their cars across the spectrum. But something that supercar does get you, which a Maestro would not, is access to certain events.
That's true. By which I presume you don't mean the local magistrate's court.
Well, fortunately, you were well within the speed limit there, so no, definitely not. But that is going to be a problem for some people. No, I mean certain types of meets, car shows, that sort of thing. Even if you're going to something like Goodwood, there's a supercar parking paddock, which is very close to the main entrance, which is a convenience. You do have to pay for it, it's not free, but it's nice to have the ability to park the car a little bit closer. But also, they do that because they want people who are arriving there to get to see some of the rarest cars that they might otherwise not see in everyday life, all together in the same place at the same time. It gets you access to certain clubs, certain car driving clubs, many of which that I think, what was that saying?
Oh yeah, Groucho Marx. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be a member of any club that'd have me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably how you feel about it. But I actually quite like joining some of these clubs because I've met some new friends there. I've met some really interesting people. To a certain extent, you get to do some networking, which when you've got some business both in YouTube and outside of YouTube, that can actually be quite beneficial. Whether that's meeting someone who has a car that might want to lend it to you, or meeting someone who has a business that might actually be able to do some business with your other business. These are opportunities that I think happen just slightly more often, obviously, in those kind of environments.
I think there are so many people out there that just don't get the notion of a supercar because to them it's all about the measurable. I remember a conversation I had with a friend's dad once. He was about to buy a McLaren 720 and we said to him, "Oh, you're getting your first supercar?" And he said, "No, I've had supercars before." I said, "No, you haven't." He said, "No, I have. I had my 911 Turbo." Yeah, that's not a supercar. I said, "It is. It's so quick." And he goes, No. That's not what it's about. Sure, being quick is part of what makes a supercar, but that isn't what defines it.
No.
He got home and he came to us and he said, I get it. He's like, I totally get it. He's like, I've had more people stop and talk to me in the first journey I've had with this McLaren than I did the entire time I had the 911. And this is what I love. I mean, we went and picked up the Mercedes the other day. We pulled up in this, and everybody from the garage just came out to look at it. The techs came out, and look, car mechanics are the most jaded and cynical of all people, right? They just don't care. But these guys were lovely. Derek Wells in Stonemarket, got to give them a shout out, lovely people. And they were passionate. This thing rolled up, and all of a sudden you're having a chat with people. Like it's a great social lubricant.
Yep.
I don't drink. Cars are my booze. They get people talking, you know. They turn the most muffled and sedate of people into a very loquacious individual. I remember once I borrowed an old 911. I parked up opposite my mum's house. It was on street parking. And her neighbour came out. We had a good chat about 911s. And I said, oh, Mum, I spoke to your neighbour earlier. And she said, what neighbour? I said, go over there with the black door. What, number 11? Yeah, number 11. Really? Yeah. Well, Stephen? I was like, yeah. He's lovely. She's like, I'd never spoken to him in my life. We've both lived here for like 2 years. What happened? I was like, well, I pulled up in the Porsche and he just appeared and started talking to me. He loved Porsches. And it's like, it's just, there are car people everywhere. I know sometimes it feels like a passion that's being a little bit demonised, but actually, and especially now the weather's turned, Britain is filled with car people. And it makes me so happy.
Yeah. The other day, I had this, there was a 720S, just pulled up alongside me as I was on the motorway, and all I saw them doing was just like,
yeah.
Now, I just gave them a thumbs up because I didn't want to take too much credit because it's not my car. You know, you just get that sense of community even on the road, and I think that's something that you don't always get with all brands of cars.
No, I got to tell you. So I've only seen one other R8 while I've been out and about on the road filming this, and it was another second gen, and I flashed my lights and gave them a wave. They flashed their lights and gave me a wave, which means that in the 2 weeks we've had this, I have had more interaction from other R8 owners on the road than I have Porsche owners in the last year, because for some reason they're miserable bastards. But supercar owners generally, you're right, look, we both, each of us, know horrid, elitist, snobby people that wouldn't want anybody within 20 feet of their pride and joy. But I think we know far more people who are really happy to open the door, let that kid sit in there, take a photo, whatever. Like they want to share the passion, and it's something I do struggle with a little bit because British people can be a bit weird with nice things. But whenever I'm out, particularly at a car show, because I think it's the appropriate environment, like I just want to talk about the car because it just excites me. Like I am still that excitable teenage boy that just loves watching stuff, reading stuff, looking at pictures. It's just that now, every now and again, I actually get to have a go.
Can you imagine? Some kid somewhere has probably got a picture of this car on their wall, or more likely as the screensaver or wallpaper on their phone, and this could be the thing that makes him work very hard into the future.
I mean, you know, I remember one day, once upon a time, watching an episode of Top Gear where the guys took a trio of supercars to Italy.
Oh, yeah.
The McLaren, the Aventador, and the Noble M600. And I thought, wow, just to get the chance to see one of those cars would be amazing. To get the chance to sit in one of those cars would be incredible. To be in it when it's on the move would be sensational. The notion of being able to drive one day was like so far removed from me. But, you know, I harboured a hope that perhaps it would happen. To now be able to say that not only have I driven all three of those cars, I've in fact driven one of the very cars featured in the programme, and I get paid to do this. I mean, it must have started somewhere along those lines for me. Like, I was always in the sort of creative mindset. I always liked creating stuff with cameras and things like that because I cannot draw for toffee. But cars were always the passion, and I guess you're always going to be kind of drawn to what you're passionate about. So, you know, there I guess is sort of the proof that the inspiration works. You know, maybe one day someone will walk up to me and say, hey James, I've started writing for a car magazine, if they still exist by then, because I saw your videos. I did have someone walk up to me once and say, oh James, I've been watching your videos since I was 10, and he just bought his first car. I said, no, you take that back right now, young man. Like, no, don't do that to me. Like, I already have to look at these grey hairs in the mirror. They're not supposed to be there.
Even when we were doing 30, 40 miles an hour as we are now, these things feel special
Mm-hmm.
in a way that I don't think you get in any other kind of car.
No, to me, that is the thing with supercars. Like, they should be able to feel special at 40 mile an hour because that is the speed you're probably going to be doing a lot of the time. Like, you're not going to be going down here at 90 or 100 mile an hour because it's not legal, it's not safe, and it's not sensible. So I'm doing 27 mile an hour following the slowest Peugeot in the world. This is a 60 limit, and you could definitely do a lot more than 27 mile an hour through here, I can assure you. But I look in the rearview mirror, I see that big swan-necked carbon fibre ironing board out the back. We've got this lovely thin-rimmed steering wheel with all the big buttons on it. I look over here, see this carbon fibre wing mirror. In the reflection down below, the air scoop. It's a very special thing, this. And look, there will be people out there for whom one of these, it just doesn't make sense. I've known plenty of people that buy their Ferrari, have it, and go, yeah, it's all right, I didn't really love it, though. And in that case, I say, fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to love it, you don't need to. People like different cars for different reasons. You know, variety is, after all, the spice of life, part of this amazing tapestry that we inhabit. But I do maintain there is something about pulling up somewhere in a supercar that elicits a reaction 99 times out of 100, which is positive, that you will just not get in anything else.
And for the most part, what makes me feel good about that is not how that might reflect on me, but on the moment that we just created for that person.
Yeah.
Because I remember being that person.
The way I always think about it is that I think some people see someone driving through town in something like this as someone walking through going, yo, call the RSPCA because these swans is sick. Imagination required, all right? But the way I like to see it is if one of us were to walk through the middle of town holding the Mona Lisa going, look at this, it's amazing. Like, these are portable pieces of art.
Yes.
That's the way I see it. It's just a way to brighten the landscape in our own very weird way. But I love it, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I think also the important thing that we do with actually using these cars is not just reminding people that they are out there, but that also they can be driven, they can be used, they can be enjoyed. And just being able to see one of these cars can improve someone's day. Heck, it improves my day. You know, I have a press car parked on the driveway. You know, the last 2 weeks, I've been able to look outside and see the very R8 from the credits of Top Gear.
Yeah.
That makes me immensely happy. I mean, in value terms, that car's probably worth about 35 grand.
Yep.
It's not actually a particularly high value car.
Oh, it's so cool.
It is seriously cool. Now, in practical terms, I probably got less money than I would do if I didn't own supercars because they are expensive to run. But I am definitely, without a doubt, happier for them.
Yes.
For sure. And with that, we wish to say simply a big thank you to all of us for supporting us on our journey and continuing to give us inspiration to do the things that we do. We thank you very much.
Like and subscribe. Bye-bye.